Good afternoon, guys. How are y'all doing? Good.
Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, it is. Happy Wednesday. Hump day. And Adam, welcome aboard. Glad to have you. I will formally introduce you to the rest of the board here in a second. Can you help me pronouncing your last name because I don't want to butcher it?
Cervera.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to make
Yes.
sure.
Nice and easy, right?
Yes, sir.
Hey, good afternoon, guys. It's Alex Tamargo. I'm driving, so I'm going to keep my camera off, but I'm on the meeting.
Okay. All right. Appreciate you, Alex.
Thank you.
Alex, I think Ricky Bell and Thomas Kenner are attendees in the that need to be bought over.
Craig, this is Alan. I can't seem to get my video to work, so I guess I must have broke the camera last time last time I turned it on.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Oh man. Let's see if there's anybody else. Coach Schusterman.
Hello, I'm here, Mark Schusterman.
Hey there, Coach. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys today?
Pretty good. Mr. Bell, are you on there too?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I got you.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Yes.
I see you.
All right, good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Greg, that's everyone so far that's logged in.
Okay. Right now, only person I think we're missing is Paul Burns, but I'm not sure Dr. Burns may be able to be on due to his responsibilities with DOE. But again, just want to thank you guys for jumping on, and Alex, have you already started it yet? The YouTube?
Yes, sir. It's already started.
Okay. All right. Well, Mr. Chambers, I'm gonna turn it over to you and let you call the meeting to order, and we can get rolling.
Thank you, Mr. Damon, and good afternoon, everybody. And
Yeah.
before we start, I would like to say that, Mr. Savidio, your office looks absolutely incredible. You're pretty outstanding over there.
Appreciate it.
Wow.
Still in the process of decorating it, but
There you
I'm well
go.
with that.
With that said, our meeting this afternoon is going to provide us an opportunity for the FHSAA staff to share football classifications proposals and to answer any clarifying questions from the board. Please remember that this is not an action item today. Comments from the board should be limited to clarifying questions only. That kind of sets the stage, and I know Mr. Damon will give more information as he gets into it. But before we do that, Mr. Damon, if you would please take the roll.
Okay. Ms. Bayless?
Here.
There you go. Mr. Bell,
Here.
Mr. Berryhill,
Here.
Dr. Burns. I don't think Dr. Burns is on. Mr. Severo.
Here.
Okay. Superintendent Chambers.
Here.
Mr. Ford. I don't see Mr. Ford. Okay. Coach Johns. Mr. Kenner.
Here.
Mr. Schusterman.
Here.
Mr. Savidio.
Here.
Mr. Shirley.
Here.
And Mr. Tamargo.
Here.
All right, Superintendent Chambers, we have 11 of the 13 board members present for today's informational workshop.
Thank you, sir. And at this time, we'll turn the meeting over to you and the staff for the presentation.
And again, just want to thank each of you for being here today. It's that time of year when we do classifications, so wanted to provide information, share with you guys where we are landing as of right now, to give you opportunity to ask any questions that you may need as far as clarifying before this weekend's board meeting, because actually this will be something we're going to vote on. We did a little different this year. We focused strictly on football at this point in time because football is the one that need to have the classifications out as soon as possible so they can work on scheduling in the month of December and at the beginning of the year. The plan is to, once football is done, to look at our other team sports after the first of the year and bring something back to the board in February for our other team sports. So today we're focusing strictly on football classifications moving forward. So I'm gonna ask Mr. Ozuna if he would share his screen, which has our today's little PowerPoint presentation for you guys to take a look at. And you can go to the next slide, Mr. Ozuna. And just sharing how we got to where we are. We did conduct a survey. We surveyed coaches of all of our sports. We surveyed ADs, county ADs, superintendents, heads of schools, just tried to gather as much information as we could. Every time that I've been out and about, I've asked questions and tried to gather feedback because I knew this was the time of year, or this year was the time that we would need to look at classifications, just trying to gather information. So some of the feedback that we use today is that when looking at the survey, 85% of the respondents felt we should keep districts. About 78% felt that some form of required contest should be part of whatever we do moving forward. Overwhelmingly, district championships qualifying for state series was the response from the respondees. But I also heard from folks as I was out that they wanted some autonomy when creating their own schedules. For example, a couple schools are questioning the ranking system this year because they are forced to play teams in their district that have 1-7 and 1-8 records. So because we mandate that they play those games, is negatively impacting their ranking. So they've asked that, can we have some autonomy as far as creating our own schedules? Football is the one sport that doesn't have a championship actual game. So thought about trying to create some excitement in the sport of football, because across the country, numbers have been declining with football, and trying to find ways to continue to have those numbers increase in the sport of football. Also want to address schools opting out for independent status. Several of our schools at one point in time, 5-6 years ago, it was our smaller schools that was opting out because of enrollment gaps. But more recently, we've seen some of our schools in our larger classifications choosing to go independent instead of playing in the state series and so forth. And we also, every year, we get some of the schools, when you match up 1 versus 8, where there's extensive travel involved, and with the rising cost of transportation, these are some of the things that we want to consider moving forward with the classification proposal for the next cycle. Next slide, Alex. So currently, right now, we have 7 classifications plus rule in football. With the 7 classes plus rule giving us a total of 8. With those 8 classes, each class is divided into 16 districts per region, 16 districts throughout the state, 4 per region, making up the 4 regions. And as far as qualifying for state, the 4 district champions of each region, and then 4 at-large teams advance to the playoffs. Our rule classes look different. We've always considered them a little different as far as classifications are concerned. And right now, they're the only class that does not have a district. They play whoever they want to play, and then rankings determine who makes the state series at the end of the season. Next slide, Alex. And here's just a breakdown of the numbers per class. So you look at the rural class, there's 38 total schools in rural this year. And when you look at 1A through 7A, the goal has been in the past to try to make sure we had an equal number of teams per classification. So you see 65, 65, and then 64 throughout. And then there's the enrollment gaps based on each classification there. But if you look to the bottom, there's 54 schools this past year that chose to have an independent status and not be part of our state series. Some of those schools have chose to play in a different association, and some of them just chose to have an independent schedule. So that's has been a concern. And then of the 832 schools that we have, total probably 750 being high schools. There's 227 schools that do not have football as an option at their school. Next slide, Alex. So you break that down. One of the concerns a few years ago that we heard from schools, and something that we hear constantly when we think about doing something outside of the box, is the finding games outside of their district schedule. So one of the things I want to take a look at was looking at our current structure we have in place now. You look at the first column there, it's the number of teams in a district. So we're looking at the first row across. We had 12 teams that only had 2 teams in their district. So with 2 teams in your district, that means they only had one mandated game and had to try to find 9 games throughout the regular season and so forth. You can see the numbers go around. But if you look at the number of 16 districts for each classification, and you divide that by the 64 teams, there's an average of about 4 teams per district in each of our classifications. There's a few exceptions where we had 14 that had 5 teams in the district. But again, 3 and 2 being the outside of the norm. The norm was 4. So when I looked at that number, about 88% of our schools have been successful finding at least 7 non-district games, excluding the rural class, which the rural class, all 10 or 8 or 9 of their contests that they chose to play were all non-mandated games, but games that they actually reached an agreement with the school in order to play that. This screen here is probably very important because as we had conversations about doing something different than what we've always done in the past, a question that has come up often with some of my former coaching colleagues is that, we need more required games because it's tough to fill out a schedule. But our numbers here reflect that, almost 88% of our schools have successfully found at least 7 non-district games throughout the previous classification cycle that we're in. Next slide, Alex. So basically what I'm proposing is looking for the sport of football of moving to a 5 classification system plus the rule. So we have rule and 1A through 5A. Still have schools that are eligible for state series, divide those into districts. However, not have any mandatory district contests, where schools would schedule 8 games in the first 9 weeks of the season. And then week 10 and 11, the top 4 teams, according to the FHSAA rankings, will compete in the district tournament the weeks of week 10 and week 11. The semifinal games would be, the number 1 seed of the district versus the number 4 seed, number 2 versus number 3. And this would be based on the 8 games that were played, where schools got to choose who they played against and gave them autonomy that would determine the ranking, and it would fall into suit with what we do in all our other team sports. The district championship game would be week 11. The 2 winners of game 1, the winner of game 1 and game 2 would play for the championship. And the thought was the 2 teams that did not win game 1 or game 2 would meet up during week 11 to secure a 10th game of the season for each of those schools. Next slide, Alex. Which, looking at the numbers, there could be anywhere from 6 to 8 teams in districts. So the thought was any team that was seated outside of the top 4, 5, 6, 7, and so forth, could choose to schedule games against each other. For example, if there are 8 teams in a district, 5 and 8 could play, 6 and 7 could play, week 10, and then switch up for week 11 to get 10 games during the regular season. Or for some of our schools, being, with that type of record, they may choose to move on to winter sports, where there's not as much overlap with the fall sports and the winter sports. So could choose to move on. What I'm also asking from the board, and it's in policy, but want to reiterate it to the board, is that I have the authority as executive director to administratively assign a member school to the next classification lower than or higher than the classification to which they would otherwise be assigned for geographical isolated areas into a classification that would just make more sense. That's something that we've sort of been hesitant to use. However, looking at what has happened over the past couple of years, we've had some teams having to travel 4 or 5 hours for a first round game when we could have possibly did some things or put them in a district that was closer. But also some feedback that I got from some folks was giving me the flexibility to look at some of those isolated areas. And our panhandle schools are some of our schools in that area where the larger schools, the next closest school might be in Jacksonville. So the thought may be to either lower them, put them in a lower class than what their enrollment number would have them in, to put them around more schools, or to create sub-regions within a class or a region that would allow closer transportation and travel issues, to eliminate the travel issues so that they would be a little bit closer to travel. When I get to the next screen, it'll show a little bit, but one of the things that we talked about too, and had some discussion with a partial group of former classification committee members and a couple of others that we invited to be on that call last week. The thought was to not necessarily have the same number of districts per class, but base the number of districts within a class on the number of schools that are participating. So when you look at the rural class and 1A and 2A, where their numbers, you'll see on the next screen, are smaller, have less districts in those classes. But when we get to the larger classes where there's more schools in those classes, to allow more districts in those classes. So for example, in 1A, if you can go to the next screen, Alex, I think that pulls up. So here's what the numbers would look like if we did 5 classes plus rule. So for example, in 1A, with it being 49 schools, there's really not a point to have 16 districts with only 49 schools. So in that class, the number may be 8 districts throughout the whole state, 2 in each region, to make up the 8 districts of that state. But when you get to 5A, where there's 136 schools, 16 districts definitely would be a number to keep from having 10, 12 schools within a district. So, but the key to looking at these numbers, how they ended up where they are, we were looking at enrollment gaps and trying to make sure that the enrollment gaps were not too large in some of the smaller classes, where it was a comfortable number that we felt was safe for our kids to participate. But when you get in those middle classes, those large classes, if you look at 4A, where it's 136 schools, there's only a 500 student difference between the possibly the smallest school in that class and the largest school in that class. And you get to 5A, the 4,627, that is a extreme outlier. Most of our schools are in that 2,100 to possibly 3,000 student enrollment number. But that 4,627 is just one of our schools. That's an extreme. So looking at the flat 5 classification plus rule as a proposal for classifications moving forward in sport of football, this would give you an example of what the numbers could look like. Again, the numbers that we used here are based on the last classification, FTE plus the non-traditional student counts to get to this point, but just want to give you a picture of what that looked like as far as enrollment gaps plus the number of schools per class moving forward. And I think, Alex, that's sort of the proposal right now, and I'll be more than happy to entertain any questions, clarifications that folks may have, but just wanted to share it with y'all, talk through it, hear from me, address any questions that board members may have before going into this weekend's board meeting.
Will we be able to see this PowerPoint? Only because I'm driving and I have my TV off. Can you send this to us?
Yes, sir. I can send it to you as well.
Awesome.
Greg, I have a question.
Okay.
You made a statement about the schools, like the big schools that are independent. Has there been any conversations with them on why they chose that? I'm assuming it's because of the district they were in
Yes.
and the competitive nature of it.
Yes. For example, in Orange County, close by
Right.
you, talking with Lonnie Flores and some of the schools there, they just couldn't compete with the schools in the district that are in Orange County there. So what he's has created in Orange County is basically a conference, and they have a top tier, they have a medium tier, then they have a lower tier within the county. And most of those schools that chose to go independent, they were just trying to keep the football program alive. So they chose to go independent. And those lower schools play against each other and whoever they can get games scheduled against, just so they can keep football at their school.
Yeah, and in the was there anybody from like, and again, I'm familiar with that with being close to Orange County. Was there anybody from kind of that group in that group that you spoke to? Would they come back with a new classification proposal, or would they continue to stay independent because they're now controlling their narrative?
My thoughts are they'll come back. When I spoke with Lonnie, that Flores there, that was one of the thoughts. If they did not have to play a district schedule, they could play whoever they want to play. It would be appeasing to come back. And the thing that I like about where we are, where we landed, is sort of compromise of what both sides wanted. There's a group that wanted to be able to create their own schedule and have that autonomy and place teams that they can compete against. And then there's a group that also wanted some mandatory games. So with the district tournament at the end, it aligns us with what we do with all our other team sports. As a former football coach, I would love to have know going into a game. This was a district championship game. You get that type of feeling, at the end of the ball game, trophy is going to be presented, as opposed to a couple times we were district champs. I was home watching the news to see that somebody lost, and that made me the district champ. So was not able to celebrate with my team or my players and so forth. So that's a thought. And even for those schools, like I say, in the Orange County area, and Dade County has, I think, 8 to 10 down there in their area. A school in Broward County, one of our largest schools in Broward County, just sent us an email a little while ago that they're looking to go independent next year, when their baseball team is probably one of the tops in the country, so to speak. So it's trying to find a way that works best for all of our member schools, where everybody's not getting everything, but at least they're getting a portion of what we want. And it's something that I think can bring some excitement to football here in the state of Florida.
Thank you.
Greg, I got a couple questions, maybe something to clarify for the group. So I'm assuming the plan with you being able to manipulate how many districts are in each classification, if we implement the district championship little tournament that we're talking about at the end of the season, I'm assuming you guys would make a point to make sure there's more than 4 teams in a district across the board, if at all possible. Am I correct on that?
Correct. Looking at the numbers and looking at either 8, 12, or 16 districts within a classification, our numbers would be anywhere from 6 to 8, based on those numbers.
Okay. All right. Yeah. That's what I thought. I just wanted to kind of clarify that for the group. And then, so that kind of answered my next question. So it would be the top 4 in that playoff structure. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So my second question is, can you, so assuming there's an even number of teams, say 6, then within that district, everybody could play 10 games if they chose to. So the 2 that are left out can play week 10, and the losers of the first game can pair off and play somebody else in week 11 if they chose to. Have you given any thought to if there's any odd number districts and how you guys can help if someone wanted to play 10? Some people may not care about playing
10. Definitely something we thought about. So it could be a round robin type deal where if there's 3 teams left, trying to get them to play against each other, or pair them up with the district that's close by to them, where that might have an odd number. Our goal is, if someone will play 10 games, we will do our best to help them find those 9th and 10th games. But again, just trying to get some autonomy back to our schools, with rankings being where they are and how important they are with seating and so forth. It's hard to argue. I don't have an answer when someone asks me, you're requiring me to play these 4 games or these 3 games, and there's a teams that does not help my rankings at all. They actually hurt me. Again, the school I talked about ranked in the top 10. first 3 or 4 games of the season got in district play, and all of a sudden they're now 15th, 16th in the class when they're 8-1 at this point, winning the games by 50, 60 points. But because of the quality of opponents that they're playing, that we're requiring in their district, it's having a negative impact on their rankings.
Well, and it's really interesting because you get folks on both sides of that fence, some that are mad that they don't have district play because of the whole scheduling thing, but then you have the people that are complaining because it's hurting their rankings. So, this kind of does a good job of maybe helping with both of those. And the last thing is any information that that you can provide about moving forward with the fit where it pertains to this, I think would be good at some point with this group.
And with that, looking at the numbers, I think the 135 fit would be done a little bit differently if we chose to continue moving forward with that. I think looking at the numbers we have in the smaller classes, the rule in 1A possibly could combine together to have a fit tournament with 4A and 5A having 134 schools each in that. I think they need their own fit separately if those schools chose to be a part of it. So we would have to play around with it, but I definitely could see I would get away from having rule having a fit by themselves and combine them with 1A because their enrollment numbers are about the same. And actually, the 1A numbers are a little bit less than projected than what the rule numbers are as far as the top of their enrollment gap.
Okay. Thank you.
Greg, I have another question. Oh, somebody else can go.
You go first. You're more eloquent than I am.
Nobody's ever told me that I was eloquent, so thank you. I remember back when we first started doing where there was lots of conversation on how coaches can manipulate their schedule to get into the playoffs. This was probably like 2015-ish or something like that. We went away from that, and then we got to the rankings. So if I'm in a district of 8 and I'm 5, but because my district's loaded, this is just I'm just throwing it out there. Why would I want to play somebody who's 8, who's going to hurt my ranking to potentially get in? Was that, where I'm going now? Like, was that a discussion with that group?
There's been some talk about that. One of the things that you'll hear more about later on is with the Max Preps taking over and doing rankings for us. Max Preps has done football rankings, and we've always you probably heard the different hate stories about the rankings and they're inaccurate and so forth. This year, different than last year. Last year, the Ned Friedman model out of California was what Max Preps used for football rankings. They went away from that this year, so the rankings are a little bit different this year. However, the Play On Corporation purchased Max Preps. Speaking with Mark Kowski, who's in charge of the network, has talked with various states, including Florida, to give them what we want in our rankings. So part of the survey was asking, what do you ranking 5 or 6 categories? What's most important in the ranking? So my plan is once we get classifications done to get together with football coaches at the advisory committee meeting and some others and come up with what do we want in our rankings? What do we want? Do we want your regular season record to be the highest weight in the rankings? Or do you want strength of schedule? Because I'm playing against tougher competition. I might go 4-4 and somebody else is 8-0, but I played tougher competition where my strength of my schedule is going to boost me up a little bit higher or give me more points than rankings. We looked at head-to-head. So ask those questions because I'm trying to gather information where I can share that with Play On and Max Preps to create a ranking that does what we wanted to do here in the state of Florida. Right now, we've asked they're doing it for us, and ours is a little bit different. But the only difference is they use their percentages and weights, but they just take out, the forfeits and so forth. So it's a little different than what the actual Max Preps is, where we're looking to actually create our own ranking system, like a couple other states have reached out to Max Preps, and theirs is tailored to what they want, weighted the way they want it to be weighted, so that we can have a more accurate reflection of what we want. So you won't have that situation. It won't penalize the school for playing a tougher schedule. so to speak, where playing a tougher schedule can reward you. You get more points if you win those games, of course, because winning is important, but you won't get penalized as heavily for playing a tougher opponent.
Thank you.
Craig, I reserve a lot of comments because I gotta let this thing simmer a little bit. But I do think if you're not in the top four, some schools are going to struggle to be able to find two more games. Um, you know, that just the life of an AD down here. It's tough enough to find games, so it's on both sides of that. It looks like this model increases the district championships across the state, so more opportunities for teams to have district championships. Would that be a correct assumption?
I should be less because we have less classes. So we're going from, again, 8 classes down to 6 classes. So there would
All right,
be
so
less
okay,
champions.
so I understand. So now we're doing less district champions, but still basing 5A, 4A off school enrollments, which means the same schools are going to basically win state championships. Um, Again, I got to let this whole thing simmer a little bit more, but I'm not a big proponent of school enrollment being a heavy deciding factor in classifications because 1A is beating 7A, 2A is beating 5A. Some schools, not all schools are created equal. I'm a school of 2,000 and our seats are limited. We cannot get kids in because we're packed. Other schools that are 2,000 can. And so it's just different across the board. And to have that as a major factor in classification in the model of this, I don't know. Again, I got that summer. Then have you guys thought about, and I've talked to you about this before, running this model through AI and seeing what it would have looked like the past 5 years? I've done a lot of that over the past several weeks with just based off rankings, what the districts would look like, what the regions would look like. I even inputted all the addresses of every school in the state of Florida and did a travel comparison for all the regions and what the playoffs would have looked like based off rankings from our state rankings and from the regular traditional max prep rankings. It'll take about a day or so, but you guys could model this thing out for AI and we could see what it would look like for the past 5 years.
We did look at, due to GeoBatch, we did look at 7A, 6A, doing 6 classes, 8 classes, 7 classes, 6 classes, and down to where we are now. On the map, the issue with the state of Florida is when you go out on I-10, there are not a whole lot of big schools being built out that way. So when you get to the Pensacola, Okaloosa County, Pensacola area for the largest class, the next closest school that size is possibly the Jacksonville or the Orlando area. So that didn't matter what size class, how many classes we had, that issue is not going to go away because along I-10, they're just not building large schools out that way. We threw some stuff in, at least I threw some stuff in the AI with schools to see what it would look like, and it paired schools up a little differently. When I think about football, in the number of classes that we've had in football, being a former football coach, I feel it's watered down. With 64 schools in a class and 32 making the playoffs, 50% of our schools are making the playoffs, and you see those first round games where it's running clocks, teams getting beat by 50 or 60 points that probably shouldn't be in the playoffs, probably should be another route as a thought. Trying to think of the other comments that you made.
I just think that
I think the open division, because that starts next year, is going to help with some of the schools that always win. So the Craig Damon High Schools that's won 7 state championships in a row, doesn't matter what class I was in, I'll be pulled out and put in that open division next year. So I think the open division will help with some of the schools that have won 4, 5, 6 state championships in a row.
so everything for me basically goes back to rankings, and uh, you talked about distance in the panhandle. Yeah, it did. There's a couple schools in the models that had 3-4 hour trips, but then what you do is you had the autonomy to do sub-regions. And so what I did is instead of 4 regions, I did 8 regions. And then the first round's game travel decreased. So there's just a couple of thoughts. I have a tough time with the classifications just basically being built off school enrollment, because not every school's 2000 is the same, or 500 is the same. Private versus public's not the same. So I'll let this simmer, and I'll bring some of my notes for all the stuff I did. Just so the board know, I did mine. One model was past 5 years based off the max prep rankings, not the Florida rankings. And, in the top classification based off rankings, only 4 teams were in that same classification over the past 5 years. So there was a lot of movement in and out of every classification just based off rankings, which gave more teams opportunities to play for a championship. Those are my thoughts.
And Mr. Ken, if I can respond, in a perfect model, if I could thought that we could get what our coaches could get our coaches to agree to it, we would use a model that another state uses, where you just play your 10 games, and at the end of the season, you rank you put you in classes based on your rankings. And we're in the state of Florida, with our ability with school choice to move schools at any point in time, non-traditional kids to play back and forth. And I might play football at school A and fall underneath the non-traditional account at school A, but then move to basketball at school B and then baseball at school C, when I'm sort of counted in 3 different places and so forth. So with our ability with school choice of kids to move mobility wise and the non-traditional participation, it makes it extremely hard in the state of Florida to look at anything besides enrollment, unless you go to something where play whoever you want to play, and we'll put you in classes at the end of the season. If we ever could get our coaches to agree to something like that, I think that's probably the only way that we can get to where it's apples to apples, so to speak, and it's more on a level of equity, I guess, if you want to call it that, playing talent wise. But until we can get to where we would agree in the state that that's something that we want to look at, it sort of made it hard to get away from just strictly enrollment. But trust me, we looked at is I examined as many states and what they do as we possibly could, and Florida was just unique in our education structure. We're so much farther ahead of them as far as choice is concerned, that it makes it a little bit difficult to take one of their proposals and put in place.
Craig, can you clarify if we were to move forward with this and the district tournament, so to speak, whatever we want to call it, how the playoffs would be determined from that?
Once the district tournament is determined, the district champions would automatically qualify for the playoffs, and then the next 4 or the next number of at-large teams per region would qualify and fill in the bracket. So you'll still be seated similar to what we have in place now. It would just be an actual district championship game. People would know that, okay, this game tonight is for the district championship. It's not, well, so-and-so's playing cross town. If I win, I'm district champs. If they lose, I'm district champs, or whatever else. We would actually know that this is a championship game, and you have a championship type atmosphere.
And for clarification on us in rural that have never had district champions, are we saying the district champion would automatically host the first round, or is it going to go straight to rankings at that point?
The way it's been put in place so far, the district champs, and even that was something that was part of the surveys, the respondents felt that the district champ should host that first round. We should not take that away, and then it goes to seeding the higher seed after that point in time.
Thank you.
But I think you bring up a great point, Bobby. That's something new for the rural class. I think, the rural class has had district champions there for a while, and that's something that a school can mark down as an accomplishment. Winning a district championship, getting a banner in the gym or a trophy in the locker room or so forth is something that we have not provided for our schools in the rural class. If you didn't win the state championship or the regional championship, there really wasn't no accomplishment for you except for making the playoffs. So this is something that our rural schools would get to experience that are similar to other classifications.
Yeah, rural has never had district champions, so that would be good for them.
Mhm.
Greg, can I ask another question?
Of course you can. That's what it's for.
So just kind of piggybacking off of what Bobby was talking about. So if you're a 1A school and there's only 8 districts in our whole class because of numbers, are you still taking 32 teams to the playoffs? Or is it truncated down because there's only 8 classes? Does that make sense?
It does. The thought right now is to continue taking 32. The rural class might be one that we may look at a different number just based on the number of schools that actually choose to participate in the state series. But the other 5 classes would still take 32.
So inside of a region, there's 2 districts, 2 district champions, and you would have a lot of at-large teams moving
Could
on
have a
to
lot of large. And
Okay.
and that's something we can talk about, in operations on Sunday. If 32 is too many for, 1A based on the number of schools that's there.
Yeah, I think about the last time we went through this, and I can hear Shelton yelling, "You got to talk about the playoffs before you talk about districts." So that popped into my mind while Bobby was talking about that. And I'll say I've talked to you about this multiple times, Craig. I agree. I think our state is very different, and I would be a huge proponent of having sub-regions throughout our state, which I think checks the traveling potential issues, no classifications, play or schedule required, region or sub-region games, and then the rankings would populate the bracket. That's not where I think we're going right now, but I think that would kind of massage all the issues that people have on one side of the fence or the other.
And again, just trying to be responsive to our membership and membership requests, trying to get out and hear, the pros and cons of everything, and trying to figure, at the end of the day, we got to make a decision on what's best moving forward. And we always can adjust, but trying to think outside of the box with some of our thoughts that we went in, as opposed to not just doing the same thing we've been doing just to say, roll it out, because we could have very easily just said, okay, continue with rule +7 and roll out with, I think we hit 12 2-team districts, that number. And that's not, 1 and 9 gets, I could be 1 and 9, win the 1 district game and be in our state playoffs. And that's not what I think we want here in the state of Florida.
Right.
Greg, if I could clarify a little, just something that when we've had these discussions, a couple things that were really important to the group that was involved. One was giving Mr. Damon some freedom to make some decisions, such as sub-regions, such as moving teams from one class to another, whatever, because they have the ability with that freedom to solve a few of the issues that are out there that as of now they've not had the freedom to do so. The second thing was trying to increase the number of teams in these districts and make the districts larger, which meant that you can't treat every classification the same. So that was the thought process behind some classifications are going to have more districts than other classifications, because you want some bigger districts, especially if we're going to play the district tournament, so to speak, at the end. You need more teams in there. You can't do that with 2 or 3 teams in a district. So just kind of thinking outside the box that we can't like we kind of treat football different from the other sports. I think at this point we've got to start treating each classification maybe a little bit different from the others, to be able to give them the ability to make this step forward a little bit better for everybody. So I just wanted to try to clarify that a little bit.
Other questions? And again, just trying to get as much information to you guys so you can have some things to think about going into this weekend's board meeting, write down questions that you may have for the operations committee or for the full board meeting on Monday before we vote. But just, again, wanted you to hear from me, answer any questions that you may have, but just trying to be responsive to what our membership wants as far as moving forward in the sport of football. Don't see any more questions. So, Mr. Chambers, I guess that might be it. I'll turn it back over to you.
No, I appreciate it. And I just want to say from conversations that we have had, Craig, I just appreciate very much the pre-work that you've done with those around the state in formulating the plan that you brought forth today and not doing it in isolation. So I just appreciate that. And just again, just listening to the discussion here with this group, just I'll just say from me, it inspires me to listen to all the good feedback and conversation that happens here. So if there's nothing else, just thank you all for your